Okay, so this is what people can make fun of me if they want, but I'm going to call it Takes on Double Take. So just a little brief background. Double Take was a show that 40 North put together for the 40.1 space, which is inspired by the old surrealist game of Exquisite Corpse. But of course, this is a little bit different because it's not the actual folding of paper into thirds and doing like a head and a torso and legs. It's more of just a kind of a collaboration between two artists with the mystery of the fact that you all didn't see the other person's artwork until the night of the opening reception, which was very, very exciting. So before we go into the actual pieces, I just want to give you guys a chance, like a minute, to just say who you are and anything about yourself. So EKAH, do you want to, most people know you, but just say something to introduce yourself.
I, I'm an illustrator. I sometimes do animated works, animal drawings, surreal, weird stuff once in a while.
And you go by EKAH. Some people know you Steampunk Grub.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you that story another time, but it was sort of I was trying to remain anonymous, and I started out with Steampunk Grub, then I was signing my name as EKAH, and it was kind of confusing, but there it is, I'm both.
And so, EKAH, I came to you and I said I would love you to be a part of this show, and said, do you have any thoughts on somebody you would want to work with?
Yeah.
And you said, oh yeah, I do. And her name is Kim Caisse. So Kim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi, I am Kim Caisse. It's spelled funny, but it's just Case. EKAH I live in Hannibal, Missouri, but I've lived a couple places around the Midwest, north and south of where you guys are, and I kind of feel like I've done so many shows and in Champaign-Urbana that it feels like a second home to me. So I think we must have met at one of the events there, but. So I was thrilled when EKAH picked me to join her for this. I love doing these kind of collabs. I kind of play this game a lot with both as kind of a party game with other artists around Hannibal when we have potluck dinners, and with other friends in the Springfield area. And so my background is kind of in ceramics and a little bit in costume design. I think sculpture is maybe my first love, but I don't know. I kind of bounce around between a lot of 2D and 3D and mixing the two. So yeah.
Great. So I should let everybody know who hasn't seen the show. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because obviously it was going to be a boneyard venue and a lot of people were going to be able to see it. And obviously in the current situation, people can't go see it. But I provided all the artists with a 12 by 12 cradled panel. So because I kind of liked the idea that they all started with the exact same surface and the exact same size. So when they were displayed, it was just this kind of very minimal look, and you really focused on the art. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen so people can see the lovely art. Make sure you guys can see it too. Can you guys all see that now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so there it is, installed. EKAH is on the left and Kim is on the right. And I will click forward one because here is the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
one of you guys want to explain what this is?
Yeah, actually, so this was right before the holidays. I think it was at Hui Batique's holiday home show, and Kim was there, and we had already agreed to do this. So I came by with, piece of paper and basically traced the top and bottom mark of the panel, the wood panel.
So this is the top.
Yeah.
The bottom, right?
Yeah. And then there was a center line, and we actually solicited help from Melissa Mitchell. She had no idea what we were doing. She went along with it and, made these random marks. And then we basically cut that piece in half on the spot, and Kim took the right and I took the left. But that was also a coin toss. We didn't decide, oh, you're gonna be left or right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right? We threw a quarter on the, on the spot, and that's how we decided who got left or right.
It felt very ceremonial. It felt
it was.
That's great.
It felt like we were getting married to a piece of paper.
And one day we shall meet again,
Exactly.
So then here, this is kind of where those marks are, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so EKAH, this is your piece. You're on the left, and we had briefly chatted earlier about how a lot of people thought you all connected in some other way in concept, but truly those two marks, other than some telepathy that might have been going on, those two marks are truly the only things you shared, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about this piece and how oddly right on the mark it is right now, but kind of talk about the piece a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I started out with a bunch of like probably a dozen thumbnail sketches, and initially I wanted to do something more organic or even figurative, but then ultimately my mood dictated where it was gonna go, and it's much more industrial and maybe cold and depressing even. But so the idea behind this piece was, I wanted to do something of a dystopian future, or maybe even a present day, modern life. And those pods were inspired by those individual pods you can rent as like a sleeping chamber in some cities around the world.
Yeah, like Japan has those, right?
Yeah, they're like really tiny, just enough to fit one person. And
I've stayed in them.
You have? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. For traveling, if you're going to be in Tokyo just for one day before you get to
you just go in there to sleep, right? It's not like you can do much. And that's sort of the vision I had of like numerous, pods like it. But then I felt kind of lazy about doing like, bazillions of them. So I just focus on, half dozen of these. And then I still wanted to fit into this like adjoining thing, and I had to figure that out, and I kind of threw that orange golden thing on the right.
This wasn't the first thing you did at all then, right?
Well, I kept that piece in the back of my head. I was like, I'm gonna join it somehow. And then as I was sketching out how I'm gonna do it, I figured, it's gonna be like maybe a portal or some sort of, I don't know, something that will lead to it. It looks like a controller, even a crank, even, right? Like a giant crank. But it looks like
something that's powered by the people in the cells, like that. You could imagine the energy going either direction.
Completely, yeah. Now, EKAH, this is watercolor and pencil, or is it just watercolor?
It's watercolor and pastel pencils.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I did all the base colors in watercolor, and then I started detailing and putting some pastels on top of it. And one of the reasons why I ended up doing that was because my base colors were laid kind of really in a messy fashion. So I was trying to cover them up. But it's okay,
Well, it's just so fascinating to see all these people in their little isolated box. I mean, I know you were going dystopian, but to think about, not very long after, this was hung, everyone is now isolated in their own home.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I feel like, oh, I saw this coming, you know,
Right.
but that's not the case. You know, now we're all isolated, and like if you see some of those news clips from around the world where people are looking out the window and singing or whatever, it kind of reminds me of that, but not in a happy way, you know.
No, when you see those walls of like apartment buildings in Europe and everyone's kind of just peeking out their balcony.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's click next here.
Yeah.
And Kim, let's talk about yours, because like you mentioned, I mean, I know you personally as very much 3D, because of course I worship and own several of your 3D pieces. But I love the fact that
that would be a dream of mine.
Yes, it has a feel of some 3D. So obviously you had the 2 marks here as well.
Yes.
So
you know what I wanted to say about EKAH's piece is that she didn't mention she has such an extensive background in animation, and that really is like, even though it's a static image, it feels like every bit of it could start moving, you know. And I think that informs her work so much and this piece so much. And yeah, I love it. I love seeing and I'm so glad that that golden color, you know, at least that was like, I think that's the strongest connection between the two. But
yes, it's like
and that's the thing, we didn't even share that info.
Yes.
Yeah, no. I wish I had used more blue. I don't know, but I think it's fun in whatever way it turns out. You know?
Yeah.
I think that the thing about this whole project is that there's so many things about art that are going to come from the audience and from their interpretation of it, and it's really good to leave, you know, openings for people's interpretation. And so I guess for me, one of my big I love imaginary animals. I love animals that it's hard to identify what they are, and sort of anthropomorphic animals, and that's been a ongoing theme in my sculptural stuff. So I think this, even though it's a acrylic painting, I think it's definitely like derived from some of the sculptural forms I've been working with the last couple of years. So one of the things I'm always drawn to that is a big influence is really ancient religious art and funerary art, and in particular from throughout Asia. But some of the very oldest sculpture, the eyes aren't very well defined, and I like that. And I'm always looking at ancient sculpture that, to me, feels like a very calming presence, you know. And sometimes I'll see a piece in a museum and I just want to I'll sit and I'll look at it for like literally a half hour or longer, because I just want to be, you know, in its presence while I can. So I think I'm always trying to calm myself down, and so I think that's kind of where all these critters come from. But they're never really corporeal figures. They're definitely like, they're immune to viruses because they're not really in the physical world. So they're all like spirits of the world we live in, but not physical beings.
I'm intrigued with the striped patterning in the background. Was that a beginning thought, or kind of did you add that at the end?
I think, well, I've always been obsessed with stripes, and I actually have a ridiculous hoarder stash of striped shirts that are 100% cotton that I, you know, cut up and use in various sculptures and stuff. But I think, well, I'll show you I can actually show you the process, because while we were talking, I didn't prep or anything because I'm not that organized. But I don't know if you wanted to click over to me. But I found my sketchbook that I did. I just did one page of little sketches trying to decide what I was going to do. And then picked out my favorite one. But I did sit down and, you know, put on some good music and get calm and try to like mentally be like, wonder what EKAH's up to. So I guess I started with a lot of different figures that could be coming on the right half of the panel, and then it just felt like a good way. I don't know, I needed something that was textural in the background, and I love playing around with, you know, different colors that are very close together, and how, you know, close contrasts and some, you know, dissonant notes and stuff. So, I don't know. I think mostly I work in a very visual space and then stick words on it later. So and music really is my main tool for getting my head to do that, because I'm, as you can tell, I love to talk. I'm a very verbal person. So when I'm trying to make art, I have a couple of musicians whose work I really love, and I'll put their music on so that I'm only the visual part of my brain is working in my hands, and then it just all comes out on I just doodle and doodle and doodle, and then pick out what I like out of the page of, visual barf on the, in the sketchbook.
Well,
so.
people were very jealous of me during this whole process because, of course, I got to see everybody's stuff. And Kim, you were lovely enough to ship yours in, and when it arrived, it was, I was giddy when I was unwrapping that thing. And then, of course, EKAH drops hers off, and I already know what Kim's looks like. It's very, very exciting. So you go back.
Well, I think I'd messaged you the image, and I would think I was messaging with EKAH around exactly like within minutes of messaging you, and I was like, Kelly's seen it, but I'm not, and she was like, don't show me, don't show me.
Yeah, I think most of the artists were pretty good. I didn't hear about anybody cheating as far as looking at each other's work beforehand, because it seemed pretty genuine the night of, when they were very excited to see each other. So, and then at the opening reception, I don't know if you want to share any stories, but it was very fascinating. Kind of what you mentioned before, Kim, how sometimes, the piece isn't really completed except, what the audience sees in it. And we had some back and forth on some people who wanted full descriptions of how each artist collaborated, what everything meant. And then some people then some people said the opposite. They said they love the fact that they didn't know how the artists collaborated, and they were making their own ideas up. And so that night, I think EKAH heard a lot of them. There were so many people that assumed that you all collaborated on concept and all these profound ideas. And what did some of the people tell you, EKAH? They were pretty funny.
Yeah, actually, I just, updated my website and put this up with some of the comments that stuck with me. And, people were saying that there's clearly Orwellian vibe to the whole thing, like Animal Farm on the right and 1984 on the left, and then another person was saying, oh, the animal is excreting
Yes.
to the left panel, and I forget what the other one was, but anyway, it was
I
really
was
fun.
Yeah, I was so fascinated with everybody's concepts of what they thought that you guys collaborated. And they almost didn't believe me when I said, no, it was just the two marks. They're like, no way, they had to talk about it. I said,
oh, people did notice the accent colors on the orange, yellowish orange.
Because there were so many different types. Some artists did just collaborate with color, and some did just do it with concept or even with a quote. So there were all these different different examples. But this one was the purest of it, where it was just two marks that you all followed, which I love. And
I knew something amazing was going to happen, because EKAH is always just like so magical, and I love just interacting with her, even if we're just running our mouths and
well, me too. I mean, the whole point of asking Kim was because I knew she would do something really cool. What I wasn't the thing is, I also love Kim's 3D pieces. Those, it's like,
don't we all?
Right? They're really wonderful worlds,
Thank you.
And so I wasn't sure if she would do that, but I think when we were discussing what to do, we decided on 2D. So I knew she wouldn't be bringing a shadow box like setup.
But they remind me so much of the figures in the shadow boxes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They're
definitely like a very close cousin to those figures. I figured it would be easier for them to be side by side on the wall and easier to ship and all that. And plus, I actually don't play around with 2D as much as I maybe kind of want to. So I think that's I really wanted to just paint for this one, and it's so there's when you're making because I make my figures in ceramic and then they're attached with wire. There's a lot of physical constraints to what I can do that aren't there when it's a painting. So like their skin, the bird's skinny little legs and the way that they all look attached to each other would be a lot harder to do in ceramic and wire. So yeah, I wanted to do it that way. But it was I also, when I saw EKAH's, I was like, the complexity of it, I was like, whoo, I kind of slacked on this one, boy.
But no, I think that's why it's so lovely, because I think if they were both super complex, they would kind of fight each other, and they just love each other, you know?
Yeah. I think it's nice.
Okay, let me get back to your lovely faces. Well, this is great. This is fantastic. I also, if anybody's watching this and they're very curious, when I post this, I will make sure to include, because I do want them, if they haven't seen either of the rest of your all's work, I want them to see all the 3D pieces we're talking about. And EKAH has done a few of these kind of, you've done several in this kind of dystopian world, wouldn't you say, EKAH? Some of those?
Yeah, I have.
Because then there's the animal world, and then there's kind of this dystopian world.
Yeah.
So, but it was a match made in heaven, as far as I'm concerned. It was absolutely stunning. And
here, I was going to show, now that I'm on the screen again, I don't know if this shows at all, but here's some of my sketches. Maybe that doesn't show.
Oh yeah, I can see.
Cool.
My working out some ideas and just, doodle, and then picking something out of that. But
so you did, because you knew you were coming out of that one side, so you knew that's where they would kind of come.
Yeah. I'll do a post with a link to this video that has the pictures close up of the.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, I was going to say about I really love that aspect, that it is the audience, the viewer, that completes, or the reader, or the listener, that completes any artwork. And it always, a real touchstone for me that I always go back to is there's the Little Prince, the book. There's a scene where he asks the pilot to draw him a sheep. And he draws a sheep and he says, no, that one's too skinny, or that one's too fluffy. And then eventually the pilot draws a box with holes in the sides and says, the sheep is in the box. And he says, oh, it's perfect. You've drawn the perfect sheep. And I think, this.
I love it.
It illustrates so beautifully that we all have a role to play in making art be, real in the world. And it's collaborative, even if only one person makes the thing.
Agreed. Well, I can't thank you all enough for taking the time out and doing this. I'm going to try and get as many of the pairs of artists from Double Take to do this, because I think it's a great way for people to be able to see the pieces, since they can't go to the space. And then also, I got so many people asking, they wanted to know about the collaboration and how everybody worked together. So I greatly appreciate not only you all participating in the show, but then also doing this as well. It's wonderful. And I treasure you both a great deal. So I'm going to stop recording. You guys don't have to sign off quite yet, but I'm going to stop recording and say goodbye to the audience. So,
I want to thank
everything else you want to say?
Yeah, I want to thank you for everything that you've put into this, both the show and the videos now too. And you are really a shining light of, I really think the Midwest is a wonderful place for art, and you're a big part of that for me. Absolutely. So
totally agree.
Oh, thank you both. Okay, well, let's all wave and I'll stop recording.
Bye.